All right, welcome to your own personal deep dive. Today, we're tackling something you use every single day, probably without even realizing it. English greetings. All those hellos and how are yous, they seem pretty basic, right?
Yeah.
Well, get ready because we're about to uncover all the hidden depths in these everyday phrases, and we're going to be using this awesome lesson from English Voice Club to help us do it.
It's pretty wild how something as simple as a greeting can have, like, so many layers of meaning.
I know.
We're going to break down those subtle cues so you can handle any social situation, like a pro.
I've always been curious about the why behind these greetings. Like, why do we even need all these different levels of formality? Shouldn't hi just work, across the board?
Well, you got to consider the context and what kind of relationship you're trying to build. Think about it. How you greet, say, your best friend is going to be way different from how you'd greet, the Queen of England.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. So English Voice Club breaks down greetings into three main levels: formal, neutral, and informal. Let's start with the most buttoned up one. Formal greetings.
Yeah.
What are some of those telltale signs that someone's going formal on us?
Well, one dead giveaway is if they use full titles and honorifics. So instead of, "Hey, John," it'd be, "Good morning, Mr. Smith."
So it's about showing respect, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maintaining a certain distance, especially if you're meeting someone for the first time.
Exactly. And you'll notice that specific phrases like "good morning" or "good evening" add to that formality. You wouldn't normally use those with your close friends.
Right. It's all very proper. So what about the actual language itself? Are there any words or phrases that just scream formal?
Oh, absolutely. Formal greetings tend to use more complex sentences and a wider vocabulary. So, for example, instead of a simple "nice to meet you," you might hear, "It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance."
Whoa, that sounds almost like a different language.
Yeah.
But yeah, it creates a more sophisticated, polished impression. So if I'm trying to make a good first impression at a business meeting or a job interview, I should definitely stick to formal greetings.
You got it. It shows that you understand the whole social etiquette thing and that you're, putting in the effort to be respectful.
Okay, makes total sense. But you got to admit, formal greetings can feel, well, a little stiff and unnatural sometimes, especially for those of us who are, more laid back.
That's where neutral greetings come in. They strike a balance between being too formal and too casual.
So it's like the Goldilocks zone of greetings. Not too hot, not too cold, just right.
Exactly. Neutral greetings are perfect for those everyday interactions with colleagues, acquaintances, or people you don't know all that well.
Okay, so what are some examples of neutral greetings? I feel like I use these all the time without even thinking about it.
Hello, hi, good morning, how are you? These are all classic neutral greetings. Polite, but not too formal, and they work well in a bunch of different situations.
So it's about keeping things simple and to the point.
Pretty much. And what's interesting is that neutral greetings often use those core phrases you probably learned in your early English classes. It's all about clear communication without all the extra bells and whistles.
That makes a lot of sense. Mastering neutral greetings is essential for navigating everyday life, whether you're at work, at the grocery store, or just out and about.
Absolutely. And even though the language is simpler, you still need to be mindful of your tone of voice and your body language. You want to come across as friendly and approachable, even when you're not being super formal.
All right, so we've got formal and neutral down. Now let's move on to the fun stuff. Informal greetings. This is where we can loosen up a bit and, let our personalities shine through.
For sure. Informal greetings are all about showing closeness and familiarity.
So what kind of language do we use when we're hanging out with friends or family? I'm guessing it's a lot more casual and relaxed.
You're right on the money. Informal greetings are usually shorter, snappier, and often use slang or colloquialisms.
Instead of good morning, it's more like, hey, what's up? Or maybe even a yo.
Exactly. And since you've got that close relationship with the person, you can use nicknames, inside jokes, or even just nonverbal cues like a wave or a nod.
Wow, it's amazing how much we communicate with just a few words, or even without any words at all. But I bet it could be tricky for someone learning English to know when it's okay to use informal greetings. What would you tell them?
It's always better to err on the side of caution, If you're not sure, just stick to a neutral greeting until you get a better feel for the relationship and the social context.
That's really good advice. It's about being mindful and respectful, even when you're trying to be casual. All right, so we've covered those three main levels of formality: formal, neutral, and informal. But are things always that black and white? Are there times when the lines between those categories get a little blurry?
Definitely. Sometimes you might start with a neutral greeting and then shift to a more informal style as the conversation goes on, and you get to know the person better.
That makes sense. It's like we're always adjusting our communication style based on the social cues we're picking up.
You got it. It's a dynamic process, and the more you pay attention to those cues, the better you'll get at navigating all those different social situations.
This is so interesting. I'm already starting to see English greetings in a whole new light. It's not just about the words themselves. It's about all those subtle messages we're sending with our tone, our body language, even the specific phrases we choose.
Exactly. And those subtle messages can have a big impact on how our interactions play out.
Well, we've definitely covered a lot of ground already in this first part. But before we move on, what surprised you about the different levels of formality in English greetings?
What really stands out to me is how these small choices can tell us so much about the speaker's background and their relationship with the person they're talking to. It's a good reminder that language isn't just about words, it's a window into our social world.
That's a great way to put it. It's like we're all trying to crack this secret code.
Exactly. And the more we understand that code, the better we can communicate and, build those real connections with people.
And we're back, diving deeper into the world of English greetings. I gotta say, this has been a real eye-opener for me. I never knew there was so much complexity,
Yeah.
so many nuances in just saying a simple hello.
It really is kind of mind-blowing when you think about it, right?
It is, and we've gone from those super formal greetings, the kind you'd use with royalty,
Yeah.
to the casual ones used with friends. And of course, we touched on those fascinating nonverbal cues.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of which, I've been seeing them everywhere since we started this deep dive. It's
Yeah.
like I've suddenly got this secret decoder ring for understanding, human interaction.
Well, that's what happens when you become more aware, right? You start noticing things you never saw before. And once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Exactly. Although, gotta admit, it can be a bit overwhelming. Like, now I'm always second-guessing myself. Am I being too formal, too casual? Is my handshake firm enough? Am I making enough eye contact? It's kind of a lot.
I get it. It's totally normal to feel self-conscious when you're first starting to pay attention to this stuff. But the most important thing is to just be yourself, be genuine when you're talking to people. Trust me, they can always tell if you're trying too hard or trying to be someone you're not.
Okay, that makes me feel better. So as we wrap up this deep dive, do you have any, last bits of wisdom for our listeners out there who are working hard to master these English greetings?
I'd say don't be afraid to just go for it. Experiment, make mistakes. It's all part of the process. The more you practice, the more confident you'll get. And pay attention to how native speakers do it, how they greet each other in different situations. Try to, mimic their tone and their body language.
That's great advice. It's just like learning any new skill. The more you do it, the more natural it becomes.
Exactly. And remember, every interaction is a chance to learn and grow. Even if you mess up, just laugh it off, No big deal. Just keep practicing.
I love that. Taking the pressure off definitely makes the whole thing way more enjoyable. So before we say goodbye to our amazing listeners, I think we should leave them with one final thought, something to really ponder.
Here's an idea. What if, instead of just seeing these greetings as, some kind of empty ritual, we saw them as little gifts we give to each other, like a moment of connection, a little spark of recognition, just acknowledging each other's existence in the world. You know what I mean?
That's a beautiful thought. It's like we're creating this web of connection with every hello and how are you.
That's it. Exactly. And those connections, even the really short ones, they can have a ripple effect,
Yeah.
Brighten someone's day or even, who knows, maybe spark a new friendship.
I love that. So to all our listeners out there, go out and greet the world with confidence, with curiosity, and with a genuine wish to connect with others. And never forget, even the tiniest interactions can make a huge difference. We're going to take another quick break, and when we come back, we'll wrap up our deep dive with some final thoughts and practical tips for mastering English greetings and introductions. Stay tuned. All right, we're back and ready to wrap up this incredible deep dive into English greetings. I gotta say, this whole experience has been a real game changer for me. I never realized, how much depth and nuance there was in something as simple as saying hello.
Right. It's pretty amazing when you stop and really think about it.
It really is.
Yeah.
We've covered everything from super formal greetings, the kind you'd use with royalty, to casual hangouts with friends. We even explore that whole fascinating world of nonverbal cues.
Yeah, those nonverbal cues, they can really make or break an interaction, can't they?
Oh, absolutely. And speaking of which, I've been noticing them everywhere since we started this deep dive. It's like I've suddenly developed this sixth sense for understanding human behavior. You know what I mean?
That's the power of awareness, right? Once you start paying attention to these subtle cues, you can't unsee them.
I know. It's kind of freaky, but also really cool.
Yeah.
Although, I gotta admit, it can be a bit overwhelming at times. Like, now I'm always second-guessing myself. Am I being too formal, too casual? Is my handshake firm enough? Am I making enough eye contact? It's a lot to keep track of.
I hear you. It's perfectly normal to feel a little self-conscious when you're first starting to pay attention to these things. But the most important thing is just be yourself. Be genuine in your interactions. People can spot a phony a mile away, you know.
That makes sense. So any final words of wisdom for our listeners who are, trying to master this whole English greeting thing?
Just don't be afraid to jump in and give it a try. Experiment, make mistakes. It's all part of the learning process. And the more you practice, the more confident you'll become. Pay attention to how native speakers greet each other in different situations. And, try to mimic their tone of voice and body language.
That's great advice. Just like with anything else, the more you do it, the more natural it feels.
Exactly. And remember, every interaction is a chance to learn and grow. Even if you totally flub it up, just laugh it off and move on. No biggie.
I love that attitude. It's all about taking the pressure off and just enjoying the journey. So before we say goodbye to our awesome listeners, I think we should leave them with something to really think about.
How about this? What if we started seeing these greetings not as some empty formality, but as these tiny little gifts we give each other, like a brief moment of connection, a spark of recognition, just acknowledging each other's existence,
Wow, that's beautiful. It's like we're weaving this web of connection with every hello and every how are you.
Exactly. And those connections, even the really short ones, they can have a ripple effect, brighten someone's day, or even, who knows, maybe even spark a new friendship.
I love that idea. So to all our listeners out there, go out there and greet the world, with confidence, with curiosity, and with that genuine desire to connect. And remember, even the smallest interactions can make a huge difference. Thanks for joining us on this incredible deep dive into the fascinating world of English greetings. It's been a real pleasure exploring this with you all. And until next time, keep those hellos coming.